My sister had been living at my place for a year while she went through a rough period. But once her BF proposed and she moved in with him, she changed completely and didn't invite me to her engagement party because a fool like me wasn't of any help. I called her BF to cancel our little agreement, and now sister is showering me with apologies, but it's pointless now. All of this actually started about 2 weeks ago when my sister's boyfriend proposed to her and asked her to move in with him. And then she hosted an engagement party earlier this week but didn't invite me. Things had already been pretty strained between the two of us. That was the breaking point for me. We had a huge fight when I confronted her about the fact that she hadn't even invited me, especially after I had supported and let her live with me rent-free for the past year. And she told me that a fool like me wasn't of any help in the first place, so she doesn't want to keep in touch with me anymore because she's had enough of me. Of course, it was very ungrateful and disrespectful to me, so I called off this little agreement that I had with her boyfriend, and now she's apologizing relentlessly, but I don't need it anymore. I wouldn't even have any second thoughts if it hadn't been for my mom. For context, Janet, my sister, her company had mass layoffs and she lost her job as a copywriter. She tried to freelance for a while, but that was not paying enough, and eventually she couldn't make rent, so she got kicked out of the apartment and had to come to me. Before that, she and I had an okay sort of relationship. We were not particularly close, still. I let her move in with me because I felt really bad for her. She was clearly going through a very rough patch in her life and she needed all the help that she could get. Our mom lives away from here with her brother, so she can't help her. And I'm the only family she has here. For the past year, I had been letting her stay with me without paying any rent because my husband and I make enough money to afford it. And let alone rent, she wouldn't even have to do any of the chores around the house or contributed financially at all. We took care of her like a child, and this is how she chose to repay me. I think it was natural that I would get angry. Anyway, in the last few months, I could tell that she had been feeling better because she'd been going out with her friends and stuff, but she still refused to get a job. She was either dipping into her savings or using the money that our mom sent her as an allowance until she found something worth her time, which I think is really strange for a woman in her mid-20s. I thought it was a weird way of living, and since she was clearly not doing that badly mentally anymore, I was trying to get her to find a job, and that had been causing a lot of arguments because she wanted me to get off her back and stop nagging her, and I thought that she was being wasteful. So anyway, in the past few months, our relationship had deteriorated a bit because she just wouldn't listen to me even though I thought I was giving her sound advice. And then last month, I found out I was pregnant, so my husband and I decided we couldn't have her living with us any longer because it would just become too much trouble, and we wanted to make her room into the nursery. Luckily, we didn't even need to have that conversation with her because just a few days after I found out I was pregnant, Janet's boyfriend Caleb came to me and told me that he needed help picking out a ring because he was planning on proposing. These two have been together for the past 4 years. He has been with her through thick and thin, and he's a good guy. The only reason Janet hadn't just moved in with him was that he used to work with her in the same department, and he had also been laid off with her. So the past year hadn't been all that great for him either, but just a couple of months ago, he had been able to land a new job. He told me that for a few months of the engagement, he was planning on staying with his parents, and then as soon as he found an apartment that he liked, he would move into it and ask Janet to come with him. But he just had to save for it for a couple of months because his savings had taken a serious financial hit since he wasn't living with his parents rent-free, unlike Janet. Instead, since I really wanted Janet to move out, I asked him to find an apartment, move into it, and then propose, and then he should ask Janet to marry him and move in with him, and that would be perfect. He was worried about the expenses, but I told him that I would cover her share of the rent for the first few months until she found something. I really wanted the house to be vacated before my second trimester, so that's why I came up with this plan. Maybe it was a bit sneaky, but I don't want to ruin my already strained relationship with Janet by bringing up awkward topics about her staying with us. And this way, it was a win-win situation for all of us, so I didn't think much about it. Within a couple of weeks, he had finalized an apartment, and Caleb and I had our little agreement, and things went exactly how I had expected it to. A few days after her engagement, Janet moved out, but as soon as she had a ring on her finger and a place to stay, her attitude towards me changed completely. And I could tell that there was something off, but even then I never imagined that she would actually not invite me to her engagement party after all that I had done for her. And then when I confronted her, she said what she said, that I was a fool and I had not been helpful at all, and I had only pressured her in the last few months and caused her unnecessary anxiety, and she was glad to be out. So she wanted nothing to do with me anymore, and then she blocked me. I was obviously furious, so I decided to call Caleb and told him I was calling off our little agreement because clearly Janet was extremely ungrateful, and I didn't need to worry about her or what happened to her anymore. She's a grown woman. She can handle herself, and she's not my child, so I don't need to feel guilty about this. This put him in a tough spot as well, but I couldn't care less about that at that point in time because I was furious. Anyway, that happened, And then a few days later, she unblocked me and started apologizing to me. Then yesterday, my mom called me up and told me I was being extremely weird and that whatever I had done was really just unnecessary and strange. She told me that there was really no need for me to manipulate Janet and Caleb just to get her out of my house. I could have just sat her down and had an honest conversation with her, and everything would have been clear. And maybe I do agree with that. I don't think she's completely off on that. But in my defense, Janet has already been very difficult to deal with for the past couple of months, and I didn't want to add to my stress by trying to have that conversation because I knew that she wouldn't take it kindly unless she already had a place to go. My mom also said that by backing out of the deal, I was creating an unnecessary amount of trouble for Caleb as well, who literally was completely innocent in this entire situation. And yet, I couldn't care about that either, and it's pretty embarrassing for our family. And I guess she's right, which is why I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm guessing I shouldn't back out of the deal because if I did, I would be a pretty big a hole. But I also really don't feel like helping Janet out, especially after what she said because she literally called me a fool after I had done so much for her over the past year. I'm in a total dilemma right now, and I really need some advice. Ida for backing out of a deal and creating trouble for my sister and brother-in-law to be. Update 1. Hey. Thank you, everybody who responded to my post. After giving it a lot of thought, I've decided to talk it out with Caleb because I think out of anyone in the situation, he's the only person I owe any sort of explanation to. After all, he did all that I asked of him only because he had trusted me, and I don't want to leave him in a tough spot. So I told him that I would indeed be helping him out, but as soon as Janet is able to find a job, I want all the money back. This is a temporary and one last favor from my side for Janet because after this, I don't want any interactions with her. Even this communication I had entirely with Caleb because I did not want him to get caught in the crossfire. As I said, he's a generally nice guy, and I don't think that it would be fair to leave him hanging, especially given his financial situation. He seemed very reliable when I spoke to him on the phone, and he told me that he could understand I was upset about everything. But he was really happy that I had chosen not to back out of the deal after all because it would put him in a tough spot. He also told me to try and sort it out with Janet, but that's where I draw the line because I don't want anything to do with my family at the moment. Even my mom. Whereas she did have a point about how I could have just spoken to Janet, being honest with her and told her the truth about me being pregnant and wanting her to leave. I think she doesn't understand that I had tried to be nice to Janet for a really long time, but she had been making it very difficult for me. And let's not forget the fact that my mom had actually been enabling her by sending her an allowance every month, even though I kept telling her that this sort of behavior was going to make sure that she never got a job and got back on her feet. But she ignored all of that. So I guess I'm a fool because at the end of the day, I feel like I've been used by my family. Janet obviously used me for a place to stay rent-free without contributing to any expenses at all. And my mom pretty much used me to support Janet without caring about what I think or feel. If she didn't care, she would have taken my opinions into account and tried to push Janet back onto her feet by making her get a job again and wouldn't have kept sending her money. She wasn't even very excited about my pregnancy. She was just concerned about the situation with Janet and didn't even congratulate me. Anyway, the bottom line is that even though I do feel bad about whatever's going on with my family, I'm not going to allow it to interfere with my life. I'm starting off on the new journey as a mother and I want to start that on a positive note. I don't want any negativity in my life at the moment, and for that reason, I'm going to be completely cut off from my mom and my sister. It is going to be pretty difficult, I'm not gonna lie, because apart from them, I only have my in-laws as family. My dad passed away in an accident when I was 7, and shortly afterwards, his parents also passed away. So we don't have much contact with his side of the family, and I'm not very close to any of my other relatives either. It was only my mom, Janet, and I against the world. As kids, Janet and I used to be very close, but while we were growing up, we drifted apart. And then recently, I thought we were reconnecting, but then this happened. And now I think I'm better off without any of these people because even though I'll be lonely, at least I'll be living stress-free. Also, even if I don't have my family by my side, I'm still going to have my husband and I think that's enough for me. Update 2. So it's been 5 weeks since my last update, and today, out of the blue, my mom showed up. I had a day off today, so I was spending it at home. And right around the time that I got off from work, I heard the doorbell ringing, and when I looked out, it was my mom standing outside. I was pretty shocked because she usually prefers to stay in her hometown and really doesn't like traveling or staying out because that's just not very comfortable for her. She had only come back for a day last time on the day of the engagement party and had taken a flight back home the very next morning, so we didn't get to meet last time. This time, she told me that she had come by because Janet really wanted her to meet Caleb's parents in a more intimate capacity, so they had a family dinner, and she had flown in specifically for that. But now she knew that I was pregnant, so I guess that's why she showed up instead of just leaving immediately afterward. For the past couple of weeks, she had been trying to contact me and had been reaching out quite frequently, but I had been ignoring her. However, now that she was standing right outside my door, I obviously couldn't pretend that I hadn't heard the phone ringing or that I had been busy, so I had to let her in. And then we got to talking, and she told me that she was really sorry about her behavior earlier, but at the end of the day, she thought that my behavior had also been equally strange and uncalled for. She told me that it was very uncharacteristic of me to go behind somebody's back and make arrangements like this just to get them out of my house when the same thing could be done by having a proper discussion with that person. Once again, I had to explain to her that Janet and I had been having a lot of problems for a couple of months, and I did not want to make that worse. Even then, I was being the bigger person by trying to avoid any sort of drama. I was going out of my way to help her out so she wouldn't end up in a difficult place where she wouldn't have anywhere else to go. So that's why I had to take such measures, and she would have understood why I was doing this if she had checked up on me as frequently as she did on Janet, because clearly she had no idea how the situation really was on my side. But I did tell her that she was right, like I had before as well, and I said that in spite of the fact that we were already fighting a lot, I should have just told her that I was pregnant and asked her to vacate her room in my house, and she probably would have taken it very well. And if she didn't, I should have just taken my chances instead of going out of my way to arrange a living situation that was good for her in order to avoid any fights or drama like a fool. At that point, my mom had the good sense not to say anything and she left it at that. But then she switched the topic to my pregnancy and we spoke about that for a bit, but I had been feeling very put out anyway. So I was being very dry with her, and after a while, she told me that she could understand that I was still upset with her and I had every right to be. However, she was, after all, the grandmother of this baby, and she really wanted things to go back to normal. She requested me not to keep ignoring her anymore because she really wanted to keep in touch and see how the pregnancy was going. I told her that I would think about it, but right now, I just need my space. Then after a while, she left and that was it. I don't know what to think of this interaction, but anyway, at least we got some things out of the way. I don't know if I'm going to be responsive towards her now if she starts texting and calling again, but maybe I'll try. At least I'm not as upset as I was before this, so that's an improvement of sorts. Update 3. Hi. So it's been 3 weeks since my last update and my mom has consistently kept trying to keep in touch with me, and I've been replying on and off. When I feel like responding to her, I pick up her calls and answer her texts, otherwise, I don't. And most of the time, I don't. But at least I'm not ignoring her completely and shutting her out like I was before. I'm still not very happy about how the situation with my family turned out to be, so I'm taking my time and she's just gonna have to deal with it if she wants to have any sort of contact with her grandchild, at least until the next grandchild comes along, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I think the situation with my mother has at least improved a little bit, and the situation with my sister is more or less the same. At least emotionally, we're still very distant and don't want anything to do with each other. And ever since I had that last conversation with Caleb, she and I haven't spoken. But Caleb has let me know that she has found a job, and in a few weeks she's going to start paying me back. It's a good thing that that's going to happen because I had almost given up hope that I was ever going to get my money back. I don't know why it took her so long to get back on her feet, but I'm glad that it's finally happening. It's for her own good and I'm honestly just happy that I won't have to be tangled in this mess anymore. Right now, the only thing I'm interested in is my baby, and the pregnancy is coming along well enough. The morning sickness has already kicked in, so that's the only trouble that I've been having. But apart from that, I'm very excited to become a mother. And since my husband knows that currently I don't exactly share a good relationship with my family, he has been going above and beyond in his efforts to keep me happy and distracted. His family has also been putting in a lot of effort, especially my mother-in-law. And I'm really lucky that I'm one of those women who are fortunate enough to have a supportive mother-in-law because she's been coming over quite frequently, taking care of me, making sure I don't overexert myself, and she's even started cooking for us and stuff, and I can't tell you guys how helpful that's been. It makes me feel a little sad that my own mother is not doing anything for me apart from just trying to keep in touch, but I guess that's always been her. I'm pretty sure though that if Janet was pregnant, she would have flown in and started living with her. In that way, I'm thankful that I'm not Janet because I don't think I would have been able to compromise my privacy. Update 4. Hi. It's been 2 weeks since my last update and today I received my first payment from Janet. She sent me a message saying that she received her first paycheck a few days ago and she thought that it would be appropriate to start paying me back from now on for all the help and support that I had shown her in the past year when she was going through a rough patch. She also said that she was really apologetic for her behavior in the past and said that she hopes someday we can be friends once again. I felt a little weird and emotional when I read that, so I thanked her and told her that I wished the same and that was it. There are still a lot of payments that are left to go, but I'm hoping that she doesn't send emotional messages like this again because honestly, it makes me feel really bad about everything that happened. I don't need that right now. I just want to feel happy. I want to enjoy this time of my life. I don't want to fixate on whatever has already passed. And speaking of that, since I'm getting along in the pregnancy, my mom called me up earlier this week and asked me how I would like the idea of seeing her every alternate weekend. She told me that she could take a bus and travel on alternate weekends so she could see me and help me out. Flights would get too expensive for frequent traveling, so the bus would have to do. And, anyway, it's just a 6-hour ride from her place to here, so it wouldn't be too much trouble. I thought about it, but then I declined because, first of all, I know that no matter how much she wants to volunteer her time to see me and help me out, it's very uncomfortable for her to travel like that due to her back and knee problems. That's why she doesn't travel much, and whenever she does, she takes flights here even though they're just 45 minutes long. So I don't want to cause her any sort of discomfort, and that was part of the reason. The other part of the reason was because while we really appreciate the offer, I know that if she comes over, she's going to stay with me now that I'm pregnant. Usually, she chooses to stay at hotels because it's more luxurious and it becomes a bit of a vacation for her. But now the situation has changed, and I know that she'll want to stay with me. And I don't want to compromise my privacy, especially now with the baby coming. Both of us are working hard and we hardly get time to see each other during the week. I'm trying to finish up all my work before I go on maternity leave, and he's working overtime for some sort of raise. So the weekends are all that we have and I don't want to sacrifice any of them. But I knew that my mom really wanted to come and see me, which is why I came up with another alternative. I told her that she could visit us on the last weekend of every month, and that way she wouldn't have to deal with the traveling part every other weekend and she could get to spend some time with us as well. That seemed agreeable to both of us, and that's what we settled on. My husband and I are still going to have to give up one of our weekends, but my mother is putting in an effort and I'm happy about that, so we can deal with it. My mother-in-law also believes that it's a good idea because at the end of the day, family is important. And everyone could see that no matter how much I tried to hide it, I did miss being on good terms with them. Of course, whatever had happened, it was not right, and I had every right to be upset with them. But then if they were making an effort, I wanted to give them another chance that was good for me too. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm really hoping that I'm able to fix things with my mother since the situation with my sister and I is at standstill. But I don't particularly mind that. She's doing well for herself, I hope, and so am I. Right now, these petty differences are not very important to me. I just want to focus on the future and make sure that that's good because honestly speaking, right now, there's nothing more important to me than the baby, and I'm going to do whatever makes me happy. As long as I'm happy, the baby's happy, or at least that's what I've heard. Update 5. Hey, so it's been quite a few months since I posted. I just got the time now because for the last couple of weeks, I've been very busy with the baby. I had my daughter about 3 weeks ago, and she's a bundle of joy. She has brought everybody together, and I couldn't be happier. My mother and I stopped with the arrangement that I had discussed in my last post here, which was a really long time back, but she started coming over to see me every last weekend. But for those few days before my due date, she stayed with me and it was really nice, actually. She apologized to me wholeheartedly. She told me that she hadn't exactly been a good mother to me, and she really wanted to make it up to me now, not just because of her grandchild but because it's the right thing to do. She also told me that she does love me and Janet equally, but she had become a little biased in the past year because Janet had been going through a lot, and maybe that's why she wanted me to go easier on her as well. But that way, she hadn't realized that she was being unfair to me. She apologized for that as well. And I think a lot of time has passed, so I decided to forgive her. We have decided to work on our relationship and try to be better. As for Janet, she had already been paying me back the money that she owed me bit by bit. And by last month, she had cleared her last payment to me. In the middle, she hadn't sent any emotional messages like she had the first time, but after she cleared her last payment, she told me that she really wanted to talk to me, to fix things with me, and apologize for everything that she had done. So I decided to invite her home, and she pretty much broke down while apologizing to me, saying that she had been in a difficult place mentally, that's why she had been acting out. And she had been the fool, not me. She said that she had been ungrateful and that I didn't deserve any of that and that she was really happy I had decided to talk to her at least. So even Janet and I have decided that we're going to try and work it out, and maybe we will be as close as we used to be as children once again. She's been visiting a lot ever since my daughter was born, and my daughter actually seems to love her Aunt Janet, so I'm happy about that. Like I said, in the beginning, the baby really has brought everybody together, and I feel like everything has been fixed by her being born because pretty much everyone was there for me while I was in labor in the delivery room. My husband, his family, my family, and I think that day is always going to be the most special day of my life.